everyone. I'm Sandy Franks, and you're watching Stockbusters at TaipanFinancialNews.com. If you'll recall from a previous episode of Stockbusters, Ian Cooper was here to tell us what subprime lenders to drop immediately from your portfolio. As you know, investors have been nervous over whether debacle with subprime lenders will spill over into other areas of the housing market. My guest today is going to tell you why you should sell one of the world's largest manufacturers of brand name consumer products for the home improvement and new construction markets. Please welcome Sarah Nunnally, editor of Material Profits and Material Profits Wildcatter, to our show. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thanks for having me, Sandy.
Now, Sarah, as I just mentioned, you found a company you think is in poor condition and worth investors removing from their portfolios. What's the company?
Well, I'm going with Masco Corp. The symbol's MAS on the NYSE, and it's a building products maker. The company is cutting 8,000 jobs, and Richard Manuigan, Masco chairman and chief executive, said on Tuesday that he expects higher unemployment as the U.S. housing market weighs down on businesses. In fact, he told investors on an internet conference that he thinks things are worse than we've seen.
Well, tell us exactly what kind of products does Masco supply to the home improvement market and new construction?
Well, you may have heard of some of the brands. They're pretty much household names, no pun intended. We're talking about Delta faucets, Kraft-made cabinets, Liberty Hardware, and Behr Paint.
Let's get a little more background on Masco. How long have they been in business?
Well, the company started as the Masco Screw Products Company in 1929, and it mainly supplied the auto industry. So it wasn't until 1952 that the company made the transition over to manufacturing faucets, and it wasn't until 1985 that the company entered the cabinet business. Now, the company has a great track record of bringing in sales revenue. After it started marketing Delta faucets, it only took 6 years to achieve $1 million in annual sales. And that's why it's a little disappointing to hear about the company having to cut jobs.
Okay, you mentioned the company is cutting 8,000 jobs. That's about 16% of their workforce. Can't they weather this kind of job loss?
Well, it's going to be very tough, particularly when the CEO of the company is saying things are probably much worse than they appear. And that makes me not have a lot of confidence in the company's strength right now.
Let's talk about the financials of the company. How much did they produce in revenues and profits at the end of fiscal year 2005, and how do those numbers compare to last year's?
Well, Masco brought in a total revenue of $12.8 billion in 2006. Now, that's up from $12.6 billion in 2005. However, gross profit fell to $3.5 billion from $3.6 billion in that same time frame. And not only that, but operating income fell as costs climbed. And here's the kicker. Net income fell from $940 million in 2005 to $488 million in 2006, and that's a 48% drop.
That's a big drop.
Indeed.
Now, I can understand the impact of the slowdown in new homes on Masco's bottom line, but what about their home improvement products, Sarah? How much money does that segment of the business produce?
Well, Masco's sales come from 5 different segments: cabinets, plumbing, installation, decorative architecture, and specialty products. So the division of sales can be a little bit difficult to parse out for just the home improvement section. However, Masco's largest customer is the Home Depot. Last year, sales represented about 20% of the company's net sales, and that totaled $2.5 billion.
Well, Sarah, let me ask you this. I read an article in the Detroit News that Masco reported net sales for the year were up 2% to $12.8 billion compared to $12.6 billion in 2005. So do you think you could be being a little bit premature in suggesting viewers drop them? After all, can't a $12 billion company survive a housing downturn?
Well, the company has shed many non-core businesses in recent years. For example, in 2005, the company divested 2 operating companies that made bathroom vanities, medicine cabinets, and other bath accessories. And to me, that's the equivalent of folks throwing luggage off the Titanic just to stay afloat. And we all know what happened then. So, additionally, the company is facing growing competition in both the U.S. and globally. And in fact, the first 9 pages of the company's annual report were filled with warnings of further bad news or of possible obstacles to increased growth.
Now, Sarah, I don't mean to give you a hard time here, but I want to make sure that viewers fully understand why you're suggesting Masco gets dropped from their portfolio if they have it. I saw that Masco announced from its board of directors had declared an increased quarterly dividend to 23 cents per common share, which is payable on May 7, 2007. Again, would something like this signal a favorable long-term outlook? After all, this marks the 49th consecutive year in which dividends have been increased.
Well, while dividends have been increasing, Masco's stock price has been dropping over the last 2 years. And since January 3rd, 2003, Masco's lost 23.5% of its value. And we're seeing the stock drop below its 200-day moving average, which shows a lack of support for higher movement.
So as far as you're concerned, Masco isn't worth holding. The stock is dropping, so now is the ideal time to get rid of it.
Absolutely. The company's lost about 14% of its stock value just over the past year, but that could just be the beginning of a long fall. In fact, Masco could drop as far down as $14.50, which is a 47% drop from current prices.
It's a big drop.
Yes, it is.
Well, I thank you for providing the information, Sarah.
Thank you, Sandy.
If you'd like to hear about the kind of stocks Sarah recommends in her monthly newsletter, Material Profits, then you're welcome to sign up. You'll find information available right here at TFNFinancialNews.com. That's a wrap for this week's edition of Stockbusters. I'm Sandy Franks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again right here next week.